Helen here with Eyes on the Game here at Top Rank Boxing, being joined by the one and only, the man of the hour, Mr. Bob Arum. Now, I have to give you congratulations. Great show this weekend, great fight, and Las Vegas and Top Rank debut by Tyson Fury. A lot of celebrities showed up, including Alex Rodriguez to Shaq to Gordon Ramsay. First off, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm really over the moon because Tyson Fury, both as a showman and as a fighter, really exceeded the expectations that we had, and they were pretty high because this guy is a one-in-a-lifetime performer. I mean, I have not seen a fighter perform as well as he did in the fight and then give a concert to the fans.
Yeah, speaking of performances, though, I do have to applaud you. You sang up there as well in the post-fight press conference. What was your initial reaction when Tyson kind of had you sing along?
Well, luckily, it's a song, America Pie, that I really love and I'm familiar with. Yeah. I was just wondering as I was singing it whether Tyson and the Brits that were up there knew what the song was about, because it's not a very happy theme.
Oh, yes, I agree. But do you sing often? When was the last time you did?
Well, whenever there's a song that I am familiar with and they ask me to sing, yeah, happy to sing along. That's one of my favorite songs, America Pie.
Yes, very catchy indeed. But speaking of, just like the renaissance of heavyweights in boxing, and I know you mentioned his name a lot, Muhammad Ali, in comparisons to Tyson Fury. Can you kind of describe, just how the process of getting Tyson Fury, how did that all go about?
Well, absolutely, sort of by accident. We had a representative over in Dubai where the person who spoke for this promotional company, MTK, that was interested in us doing their fights in England and Ireland and all over Europe and putting it on ESPN Plus. We were over there to make that deal, and then it was raised, hey, would you guys be interested in promoting, along with Frank Warren, Tyson Fury? And we said yes, and we made a deal. It took us about a week to finalize the deal, and I just had the instinct that this guy would be larger than life, and it could appeal not only to boxing fans, but to sports fans and just the public. I mean, we had people there who were our guests, like the head doctor from Cleveland Clinic, and they had never been to a fight before, and they were just blown away.
Yes, absolutely. Exceeding expectations, definitely. And one thing that I noticed Tyson said, he was very happy, leading into fight week. And he specifically said, for how you guys promoted him and also the documentary that showed on ESPN. So I do know your partnership, with ESPN. So can you kind of tell the fans what they can look forward to as far as some plans moving forward?
Well, the key element is ESPN, because given all our promotional ideas and hard work, it wouldn't really resonate the way it does without ESPN. They are tremendous partners. They're treating this as almost like an NBA Finals championship, the type of support they give. And that, I think, using a guy like Tyson Fury, plus some of our other stars like Bud Crawford and Vasily Lomachenko, as well as the kids like Shakur Stevenson and Teofimo Lopez, they will elevate boxing to a new level. Boxing used to be one of the major sports in this country. Unfortunately, once we sold, in effect, the fight business to the premium networks, our audience shrunk, not because they were bad people, HBO, Showtime, but they are a small proportion of the big television audience. So with ESPN, we have gotten ourselves back on a platform where we can reach out to, virtually everybody in America. I think that the other guys like PBC now realize that is crucial, and therefore they're doing more and more of their product with Fox. Same type of situation. So I just think that we're beginning to enter into a golden era for the sport of boxing, where the person on the street will be talking about matches as they come in the months and years to come. I remember back in the 80s when we had all these fighters who had grown up in the late 70s, like Sugar Ray and Tommy Hearns and a marvelous Marvin Hagler and Roberto Duran, when they became so popular that you'd go any place and people would be talking about them. That's what we want again. Not just the websites on boxing, not just a limited audience, but everybody talking about boxing matches. And it can be achieved and it could be done again. They've done a marvelous job in the United Kingdom, where boxing is a major sport, and the man on the street will talk about boxing almost the same way, and maybe the same way as he talks about soccer, Premier League soccer. So, I'm very pumped, and I'm happy to be along for this ride.
Yes, but like I said, you've done such a great job so far, and even some in attendance like Alex Rodriguez, I believe he said he's just trying to learn the sport, and the fact that he was there, like you said, you guys are definitely, getting everyone involved into boxing.
Right, nice to have A-Rod, because I know him pretty well. I didn't invite him to the fight. He found a way to go, and he's always welcome at any of our fights. I'm a big Yankee fan, so I admire A-Rod, and I've seen him over the years at Super Bowls and things like that. So the fact that he came when his partner, J-Lo, was performing at T-Mobile, the same night. You know that.
Hey, that says it all.
He came to the fights, right, rather than to see her perform. So it was great, and Shaq is a big boxing fan. And, I remember him over the years coming to big fights, and we're going to bring back all of those people.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I did notice you said in the post-fight press conference was that for Tyson Fury, there's no heavyweight in the world that can beat him. And if he and Deontay Wilder have that rematch, or when they do, that it won't go past 5 rounds. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Well, I really believe that Fury is by far the best heavyweight in the world. Now, I know that going into the Deontay Wilder fight, the first fight they had, he had lost 145 pounds. And when you lose that kind of weight, you're not at your best. Now he's gotten used to the weight, and he's just a much better fighter. Now, so I believe that the fight will end with a knockout victory for Tyson Fury. Now, I was watching on my computer an interview that Jeff Mayweather had, and he said nice things about Tyson Fury, but he likes Wilder to win that fight. And, and I said to myself, this is great, because what makes a great fight, a great event, are people having different views. Some people think that, hey, Wilder, who's a devastating puncher, is going to reach Tyson Fury earlier and knock him out. And that's great. I want them to. If it's a one-sided event and they just talk about how soon a fighter is going to knock another fighter out, it's not as interesting as people saying Wilder's going to win or Fury is going to win, and the odds reflecting a very, very close fight. The closer odds are on a big fight, the better that fight will do.
Yes, absolutely. And for that being kind of two different promotions, which network would it be televised on?
Both. It'd be pay-per-view, and, we'd have two tremendous megaphones. We would bring ESPN. The other side would bring Fox, two major networks. They'd figure out how to have the announcing team be a dual announcing team. I don't think there would be any dispute that Jimmy Lennon Jr. would be the ring announcer. Everybody would agree on that. So it can be done. The template was when we did Mayweather-Pacquiao with HBO and Showtime, and they worked those elements out. It's easy, and then I think it would work very, very well, easier than with HBO and Showtime, which didn't have a history of working together. But ESPN and Fox have a big history of working together. Now you see all the football where they share, like the SEC or the Pac-10 or Pac-12, I guess now, and they manage to coexist and talk about a game without regard to whether the game is on their network or on the other network. So I think that'll be just tremendous in selling the event.
And you did say that you feel it'll surpass the Mayweather-Pacquiao numbers as well, right?
Well, that's a guess. That those numbers were just out of sight. Yeah. But that, let's be honest. Mayweather and Pacquiao are relatively little guys, and people would like to say, hey, the heavyweight champion can beat anybody in the house. So now you have these two big guys, and you don't have to explain to the public that they are saying we will beat anybody in the house, whoever wins the fight. Mayweather-Pacquiao, two great fighters, but, they couldn't say we'll beat any man in the house because they wouldn't do very well with, say, a light heavyweight or a middleweight. So it's different. No disrespect to Mayweather and Pacquiao. They're just relatively small stature.
But before that fight happens, before that rematch happens, Tyson did say he's looking at late September, early October for another fight. Big Baby Miller was in attendance. Could he be a possible opponent?
Well, I think we have to really look at the situation and to determine, and it'll be up to ESPN and Fox, maybe we go right to the fight now. I felt I needed two fights with Tyson Fury in order to really have the public take a look at him and realize what a phenomenal athlete and entertainer he was. But because ESPN did such a magnificent job in helping us promote this last fight with Schwarz, maybe we can go right now into a Wilder fight. But that would depend, again, on how the other side feels about it, how Fox and BBC feel about it. But I think maybe we should be talking about, stop fooling around with interim fights, whereas we saw from the Joshua Ruiz fight, anything can happen. It's heavyweights. Who would have believed that a guy like Andy Ruiz could beat a Joshua? Nobody. People were saying, well, that's just a farce fight, It just didn't figure. You saw Joshua with his record beating the fighters he did with the physique that he had, and pudgy little, relatively little, Andy Ruiz. People didn't give him a chance. Let's be obvious about it. Honest about it. And yet, look, he's a heavyweight, Ruiz, and for whatever reason, he was able to conquer Joshua, and that took Joshua and all of his plans and changed them so that the best he's going to get is a rematch.
True. But like you said, if that rematch with Wilder is next in line for Fury, would it still happen early 2020?
No, it could happen this year. Okay. But again, I don't know for sure. I mean, right now, we're planning an interim fight for a Fury. They have talked about a fight with Wilder and Ortiz. And I'm saying that if those fights happen, until they're over, I would be very, very nervous.
But how do you think a rematch with Wilder and Ortiz would go down?
I think that's a good fight, but the problem is that Ortiz, as old as he is, still has a good punch. And I remember the fight that they had, where Wilder had a lot of trouble with Ortiz, and Ortiz, remember, almost had him out of there. I don't want to suffer through that again.
But someone else who was in attendance for the fights, and you just mentioned him, Mr. Terence Crawford. When can we expect to see him back in the ring?
Well, Terence is definitely coming back in November. Maybe late October, November. And we would be looking for a date for him in Omaha because he's, obviously he's the franchise in Omaha, Nebraska, and it's a great, great town, great city. However, we've been not working diligently on that because we're still hoping that everybody comes to their senses and we can do the fight that everybody wants to see, and that's Terence against Errol Spence. So we'll see what happens. But definitely, one way or another, Crawford will be fighting before the end of this year.
But for Errol Spence, how far along did those negotiations go?
They never started. I mean, the negotiations, Helen, are relatively easy. Yeah. I mean, we have thrown out that we would do the fight, again, with 2 networks involved, do it on pay-per-view, and split everything down the middle. Same way we're doing the Wilder Fury fight.
Yeah. But so did their side, PBC, just not have any interest in it yet?
Well, they report. When I called Al Heyman, he indicated that Spence was going to fight once more this year, and we'd look for a fight next year with Crawford and Spence. But I'm tired of next year. Let's do them this year. I mean, when we're beginning to peak tremendous interest in the sport of boxing, let's not let that interest fade. Let's give him the best possible matches this year, and that'll lead to great matches next year.
But do you think his fight with Sean Porter will happen?
I don't know. It's very, very difficult. You see, what they're faced with, Helen, is Spence got a really big payday when he fought Mikey Garcia. And obviously, Sean Porter is a much more difficult opponent for him than Mikey Garcia. Different weights and so forth. Sean Porter is a difficult opponent for anybody, and Errol Spence wants to be paid accordingly for fighting a difficult fight with Porter. And since it's not a pay-per-view fight, it's very, very expensive. So I think that sanity will prevail, and the way to pay Spence what he wants is to do a pay-per-view fight with Terence.
But when I spoke to Errol Spence, I did mention, how you just said the 50-50, and he said what would make him happy is a 60-40 split. What do you make of that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would be happy with a 60-40 split, but obviously Crawford is the guy who's much better known by the public, and if they want to test that, I would think that we would get 60 and they would get 40, or if they want to make it a sporting deal, why don't we do 45-45 and 10 for the winner? I'd be happy with that.
Yeah. Have you presented that to them yet?
No, I just thought of it now.
Yeah, hey, hopefully that does work. I mean, but for all the boxing fans, because like you said, I mean, that is the fight all the boxing fans are kind of hoping for, the Crawford versus Spence. What would you say the likelihood of that fight happening, sometime soon would be?
Well, I don't know about this year because they've told me that they want it next year. Yeah. So I just don't know. Again, you can't ask me. If I had both fighters, I could give you a date and a time, but I only have one of the two, so we'll see. I mean, I can't make any prediction. I would like that fight to happen this year. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yes, and you haven't continued, talking or trying to talk with them right now?
When I was told that, no, not next, and not this year, next year, plenty of time to talk next year. So, why would I continue talking? There's nothing to talk about. If they said, well, let's review it and maybe we'll do it this year, then we'd sit and talk. And which I just came up with, one of the ideas, because I thought everybody would agree to do that fight on a 50-50 basis. But, again, I have no objection to 45-45 and 10 for the winner. That'd make it even a bigger event.
Yes, and maybe a rematch clause in there as well.
A rematch clause, definitely. And if they're great fights, like the old days, we do trilogies. Some of the greatest events for fans in recent history have been trilogies. Ali Fraser, Ali Norton, Morales Pereira, Gotti Ward, trilogies, and people didn't get tired of those fights. They wanted to see more.
Yes, absolutely. And I know you're extremely busy, so I will leave you with this. What would you like to let all the boxing fans and Top Rank fans know?
I want to thank everybody for their support. I hope everybody had a great time on Saturday night. Watch my man Tyson Fury, the Gypsy King, who I'm very, very proud of, perform both as a boxer, entertainer, as a singer. He's really multi-dimensional. So it's just a lot of fun because it's great to be involved in an event and a sport where you're not grouchy and you're not nervous and you just have a big smile on your face.
Yes, and catch Bob Arum singing in the post-fight pressers as well.
You think they'd book me at one of these places? I mean, how many people would come to a concert, right? I can't really sing. I can't carry a tune very well. But, give me a Beatles song. I do great with the Beatles. I mean, they're my favorites.
Yes, we'll let Tyson Fury know to sing that next time.
Yeah, we got, it's some old John Lennon or Paul McCartney classic.
Hey, can't go wrong with that. But once again, congratulations on the continued success and a very successful weekend, Bob. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Helen. Nice talking.